You're live. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining the Lightbridge Light Lab on YouTube. There's a recording on Instagram, so you're getting a feed to YouTube, so there's quality as when we're really looking at light. Today, it's going to be like a talk, so bear with us if you want to, but it's here for you on YouTube as well. So the procedure is I'm now going to join in on Instagram, and it goes on from there. So you can scrub ahead another 4 minutes if you're not watching this live, and we can go from there. So, live we go. Hi, Judith. Hi there. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining Lightbridge live from Instagram from our Light Lab studio here in Vienna. We're doing this every 2 weeks, sharing our knowledge and stuff we're working on here in the Lightbridge and bringing it to you via live stream. So this is an exciting thing to do. Started out in COVID, but we're going to be keeping this even after COVID because it's so great to be able to connect with all of you. It's just amazing. So just for everybody who's new here, hi there, we're going to wait 3 minutes for everybody to join and go in. If you want to have high quality video of my tired face, you can go to YouTube and you can watch it there too. Today it's going to be talking a lot about theoretical stuff and give us a chance to chat here on Instagram. And Judith, obviously, thank you so much for doing this. She runs the sales here at the Lightbridge. So she's going to be on Instagram and YouTube, and we're going to be working on your comments because today I've been working on some thoughts and I thought I'd share them with you today. So that's something really exciting and scary for me to do here. You will own a Lightbridge set. I am sure you will. We're pushing more and more out the door and keeping up the quality. So that's just cool, able to be spread the word about lighting because that is so much more important than the gear itself, I believe. Saying that as a former gaffer. Yes, another 2 minutes, another minute to go. Thank everybody for joining in here. And we're going to be doing this. We have a test equipment set. It depends where you're living. We got distributors. They have demo sets so you can go to their facility. If you're in a closer region of Europe, we do have a special kit that we can ship around, especially for student projects that we're really proud of, so we can support that as well. Yeah, let's get going. This is exciting today. So basically, today we've got a two-part program, right? So first of all, we're going to do a small intro talking about measuring the emotional quality of light because we're measuring a lot of light these days, even more. And so I think it's important to actually see where we can go on from there to the next stage. Second part, thank you to Anneliese Schmidt, who sent us this idea to do this. So today we're also going to talk about when not to use the CRLS, which I think is as important because gear is just gear and it's great to use for some stuff, but there are definitely some things I would not recommend using the CRLS. So we'll go into that into the second half of the show. So here we go. Let's talk about measuring the emotional quality of light. So what happened is I'm going to be working a little bit off the script here because I've been taking down my own notes and I thought it'd be just great to share them. So I'm just going to keep on working on these notes here. And I hope you enjoy this as much as I do in terms of researching further and how we can actually use light. Because, you know, as I mentioned before, is we measure a lot of light, right? And we measure the quality of the color, we measure the intensity, but in reality, getting down to earth, what does it actually give us? Does it tell us if the light is right for a scene? It actually doesn't, right? I mean, just think about measuring a fluorescent tube, a green one, an old one, right? The meter's gonna say, oh my God, this is green, this is not perfect. But can you imagine like a movie like Fight Club without those really dirty old fluorescent tubes? I mean, just think about it, you know, all the times the underexposed, the overexposed, the green, the blues, all the hues out there that we're putting into these images, those are really great images. The meters are saying, oh my God, this is horrible, we can't do this. But actually, it's the stuff that's really driving the scene. And I think it's really important to also focus on this. I mean, I'm not saying that measuring is bad. I mean, just let's say, for example, we compare it to language. We're saying we're shooting at 2.8, 5,600 Kelvin. We're rating the cameras at 800 ASA. I mean, that gives us good basic, a good basis, let's say, right, to start to talk. But then, what are we going to talk about now that we know all this? That we set these basic things so we actually can have a decent exposure and we know technically everything's okay. Now it starts to get exciting, right? Because now it's about what do we want to talk about? I mean, and honestly, at the end of the day, the only thing that's really interesting to talk about are stories, right? How can we convey emotion to this, right? So it's like, what happened today? Oh my God, this happened to me. I read about this today. This is the stuff that's exciting, right? So what we're communicating is also emotions. And emotions are a big part about communicating how we're feeling, how other people are feeling, and how we actually can interact between this. And this is what makes movies great. That's the reason we can watch YouTube videos, because something's coming across and we're feeling something. And that's just a great thing to go from there. So I think that's really the most important thing that actually matters. So we concentrate on sharing emotions, sharing the feelings, and how we're going to be receiving these emotions. We go to the cinema to feel stuff we hopefully won't feel in our real lives if it's a dangerous, scary movie or whatever. But we love to feel this because, we humans, we like to feel alive, and emotions are a big help in doing that. So what we want to measure really is, when we're talking about great images, we want to measure the emotions. We want to measure the feelings we're going to have. Is this light that we're setting really going to convey the feeling we need for this scene, right? That's the big question, because that's actually our job. Our job actually on set is to say, this is the scene, this is the part in the story that we're now telling, or this is an interview we're doing. Just think about an interview. If we start off with that, for example, let's say we're doing an interview. Face is dark. Put my hand here, a lot of shade. You don't really see the eyes. Are you going to trust this person? Do you want to listen to this person? Is that going to be a feeling that's going to be able to convey to you to say, oh, I actually want to listen to this person? That could be interesting. No, it doesn't work. It has to be bright. Why does an interview face have to be bright? We want to see the eyes. That's something is so important for us as a human being when we're interacting with people, to see their eyes. It's called tracing the saccades. Like, you can put a laser into your eyes and it can actually trace where you're looking. And it's really interesting if you want to look that up on the web. You actually can see we're first looking at the eyes, then we're really fast scanning around the face, then it's the nose, the mouth, all around, then we start to get the face together. But what we're really focusing on, do we trust this person? Do we like this person? We look them into the eyes. We really feel this person. So that's the reason we have to, when we light interviews, we have to make sure, for example, eye light, the two dots, they're actually helping. Why? Because they're the brightest parts right now in my face, for example, are these two dots. That's the eye light right over here, right? So we're going to be focusing on that. Actually, our eyes, we first tend to look at the brightest thing and then at the sharpest thing. So it's really about where's the brightest thing that we actually want to look at. Those are the eyes. So we really want to pop this. We really want to get into that. That's the reason we want to light interviews like that. Not because it's common sense, not that's the way it's done. Actually, there's real knowledge behind this, how we interact as human beings. That's where psychology comes in play. And if we can use this to our benefit, we're going to be so much better at our job. So that's, I think, is something really cool to look out for. So if we're going to go to movies, for example, because I personally did much more in my life, and we look at scenes, and it's a lot of time when you read a script, and it's about how you envision it and how you want to go from there and how a scene should look. And there's a lot of stuff already written to the script, but apart from that, it's our job to add in, because we have to add all this emotion visually to help us get ahead, right? So let's take something really simple, something out of a script that says, Anne walks across the room. Is that an image? Anne walks across the room. Does that convey an emotion? Actually, no, it's boring, right? Anne can be anywhere, Anne can be anything. So that really doesn't help us. So let's add something onto this, right? Let's say Anne is walking across the room, the morning light gently sweeping across the room. That's something different, right? All of a sudden, we have a feeling, a sense of the whole room. It's the morning light is just coming up. It's coming into the room. It's gently touching across the room. We're setting a time of day, right? We're setting the weather. It's beautiful outside. The sun's coming up. So we all know this mood, and we know actually what it transports, right? So that's something we can really hook onto. But let's take this, for example. We all know this mood and this feeling, but we can switch this so fast. Now let's take a different part of the script. Anne is walking across the room. The cold light of the open refrigerator spreads across the dark room. That's a different scene, right? That's spooky. That's a dark room. It's closed. The refrigerator is open. Just the light coming in. Anne is walking into the room. What does that mean? Has somebody been there? Has a burglar been in there? Did you forget to close the refrigerator? What's happening there? We're already building a big amount of suspension. We're only doing this with lighting, nothing else. We're lighting the whole room, the whole scene in a way that it feels differently. It triggers different things in us. It triggers actually different kinds of emotions. So just saying Anne walks across the room doesn't do anything. As soon as we add light, it suddenly adds atmosphere, it adds the time of day, which is really important because that's something we us humans really relate to. Talked about this in some other parts of the Instagram lives, is how the daytimes really affect us humanly, our biorhythm, everything. So we're really triggered to stuff like that, right? Well, you can go even on, right? Let's take a different part of the script. Anne walks across the room. The warm, soft light from the chandelier illuminates the room. A different scene again, it's night still, right? But suddenly it's not the open refrigerator with its cold, dark light. Suddenly it's a chandelier, it's bright, it's warm, it's lighting up the room. Completely different emotion. Same room, same person walking across the room, we're just changing the light. And all of a sudden it tells us completely different ways how to tell a story. So I think this is just a great thing to do. These emotions, yeah, they were all set by light. So you might say, well, okay, we know this, we use mood boards, right? So we look at, we want to look the scene, maybe we want to look like this, or we want to look like that. Or, we could say, Jacob, we want a sunny scene, can you light this? Or Jacob, we need a kind of rainy scene, we need to light it differently. We can go upon that, right? But does these things really help us how to measure the emotional quality of it? Actually, it doesn't. Because the only thing we're doing right now is we're playing copy-paste. We're taking things from other people's experience. We're taking like images we've seen, or we're taking like stories we've heard, and we're taking that, doing copy paste into a movie because we know we maybe had something like a feeling, the director had the same feeling, or in a commercial, maybe the client loved this feeling too. So everybody kind of triggered in, somebody had emotion, nobody needed to talk about it. We don't really, obviously, not always like to talk about emotions. So it's something where we just can easily relate to, yeah, let's do something like this. And then it kind of gets technical. But in reality, we're not talking about emotions right there. We're just doing it really simple. So let's go into this a little bit deeper. And to measure this, we don't need a light meter because, of course, we're going to need it if, the refrigerator is too dark or stuff. But if we want to measure the quality of it, if we want to measure really the feeling of it, not just saying we love this image, let's do something like this, we're going to need some tools for this. Now, the thing is, there are tools out there, and there's a good news about it. They're free, and we all have them in us. So let's go into that, how we actually as humans can learn how to measure the emotional quality and how we actually can replicate it and use this for the stuff that we're doing. So the first tool I'd like to jump into is called emotional memory. It's actually nothing new. Actors and actresses use it all the time. The basic idea behind it is you remember a feeling you've had in the past. You bring it back, you have the same emotion, and then you lend your personal emotion to the scene you're doing. And that basically creates what the actors are doing. So if they have a very sad scene, they remember something really sad in their lives, they bring it back. But we, of course, don't know what the person is feeling. We just feel this emotion coming out. And what we're doing is we're adding this emotion with the light, with the room, with the script and the story, and we're bringing it together. And basically, we're adding all these layers of emotions, and that's basically what you see as an audience. So it's not really important that if we feel something, if we bring something back and we say, look, we're looking for this amazing quality of emotions, and I got this feeling for it, and we can recreate it, it actually doesn't necessarily mean that the audience will feel the same way, right? Like if Anne's crying in the scene and she's thinking of her sick child at home, for example, she had a bad memory of that. Maybe I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about somebody dying, or I'm thinking about something else. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because that emotion, it really comes across. So as long as we feel something and we're really true to this emotion, and we bring it over to the audience, it's going to get a reaction. Same thing in art. That's the way you can really see where an artist is really good and it catches you or it doesn't. So it's really basically about this that comes down to. So if we go back to Anne for a second here, and we just say Anne's walking across the room, the sun's coming up, right? So we may have this in a mood board, but at the same time, we also have our own memories attached to this because we remember when the sun's coming up, the beautiful idea of waking up, oh, the sun's great, it's going to be a great day, I'm rested, I can go out. So everybody around the globe can relate to the sun coming up. So that's a great tool, using the time of day and kind of act onto that and trigger something onto that. It's really basic, it's really rough, but obviously it works as what it is for that scene. But let's go a step further. Let's just say, for example, here, it's sun coming up, it's a sunny day. Come on, we shot this a few thousand times. Let's add a different layer of complexity there. Just imagine that Anne did not get out of bed, had a great rest sleep, the sun's coming up, it's coming through the windows, she's walking out the door. Just imagine she didn't go to sleep. She was partying all night and she needed to get some rest before she had to go to work. But here, man, oh my God, the sun's coming up and she's feeling sick and she still has to go to work. And all of a sudden, that scene just changes. It's still the morning, it's still sun coming up, but there's a completely different story attached to this, right? So just think about Anne walks across the room, the morning sunlight's coming up. But now we're going to light it differently. What we're going to do now is we have this early morning, just imagine the room, whatever you're imagining of a room, the early morning sunlight is coming in. It's still dark. It's so dark that the street lights outside are still illuminating the streets. Actually, some of this cool green, not friendly lights even entering the house a little bit. There's the sunlight coming up as well too, something that feels much more dangerous. The night is disappearing, the day is coming back. We just added a completely different layer to what we first just called morning sun, lights coming in, Anne's walking across the door. We're still doing the same thing. We just turned on some street lights. We maybe dimmed down a little bit the sunlight coming in. We let a little bit more of the tungsten or of the fluorescent tubes coming in from outside. We're keeping the ambient in the room down. So all of a sudden, we're just turning a few little knobs and we're changing the complete emotion on that. What they're actually doing here is we're adding layers to create an enhanced emotion because that's going to be much stronger, a scene like that, than just beautiful sunlight coming in that we see almost in every commercial every day, right? So I want to point this out on a personal level. I don't know if you know John Lee Hooker, the blues artist, but he came up with something really interesting. What he said is, he said, what use is a fast rhythm without a slow beat? Now, what does that mean? You got a really upscale fast song, but if you listen to John Lee Hooker stuff, the beat below is really slow. So by building this contrast in, that song suddenly elevates to the next level. That's the reason he is one of these artists that his music's gonna stay around forever, because he was able to add another level to complexity to it. It's not enough to make a fast song. Bring in a slow beat, do that. But I mean, we got to measure this, right? Because now we're starting to get tricky. Now we're getting to this point where we're saying it's not enough just to say emotional memory, morning sun's coming up. We're actually going a step further. We're saying it's the morning sun maybe was coming up, but I was feeling real bad. And how bad was it? And how does that feeling really convey? And that's where we're going to get to the second tool, because now we're getting more precise into detail here. And this tool I call the inner feedback loop. What does that mean? You're looking through the camera, right? Or you're looking at the monitor, and you're the first person actually seeing the scene with the light happening. So you're the best person on set to decide if the mood is correct. Because within your inner feedback loop, what you're doing as a professional, what we're trying to do is we're trying to measure our emotion, understand how good it is, and understand if we need to shift it a little bit more happier, a little bit more sad, a little bit more scary, a little bit one or the other direction where we want to go to. So what we need to do is with this inner feedback loop, we got to listen to, when we're looking through the camera, we got to listen to how our emotion feels like. We got to listen to, does it feel right? And from that, and if we understand that and we can verbalize the emotion that we're trying to get and try to communicate it to the team, it's really going to help. There's a great book. It was actually written for a different topic, but it's something I felt really helpful for myself as well to explain emotions. It's from Marshall Rosenberg, and it's called Nonviolent Communication. Now, this book actually really describes not only how we feel, but why we feel a certain way. And by using these codes and the way he really depicted it in this really fantastic book, actually, you really get a better feeling how to convey these emotions. Because let me just point that out again. That's why we're getting paid. That's the reason we're on set. We're on set because we're going to help a scene to create emotion. So everybody wants to go to the cinema. Everybody wants to turn on the iPad to look at the newest video because it looks cool. What does look cool mean? It means I'm feeling something really great here. And that's what we need to convey. So these tools are so important for this reason here. Now, the thing is with, Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication. And if you're fighting in a relationship, the book might help as well. That's the reason it was written. But basically, just in terms of tools, that's a great thing to do. Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication. Yeah, there you go. Thanks so much. So that's that. So there's one trick, right, that we have to look out for. You're welcome. To look out for when we're talking about the inner feedback loop. It's a really, the thing is with the inner feedback loop, for us to be there, to look through the monitor or look through the viewfinder, in that case, to understand the emotion, we got to be in a space that actually allows us for us to feel this emotion, to say, I'm not feeling it. It's still, this emotion has to go a little bit more into that direction, meaning the light has to go up higher, it has to become brighter. Before we communicate it technically, it's really going to help everybody, directors, gaffers, everybody on set, and they say, oh, that's where we're trying to get to. So that's something cool to look out for. So basically, what we have to do is we got to create a work environment in that you guys can be super creative. That's a tricky thing, because basically that means you got to make sure that all the people you have, the timing that you need to actually create something great, with all the pressures all around it, no question. We still got to create this space where you can look through the viewfinder without thinking about, are we going to get done in time? Oh my God, the light isn't striking in the background, the director's in the back, the first AD is in my back, everybody talking. You need to create the space around yourself. No matter who you need to protect yourself, have the gaffer stand by, say, look guys, this person's looking for the camera, we got to wait a minute until everybody gets to them, or you let the first AD know, whatever thing you have to work out for yourself. I've worked with a lot of DPs, and everybody needs something different to feel safe, to feel a feeling they can be their best creatively. So that's the thing you have to set up, because if you're stressed, your inner feedback loop's not going to work, because you're going to look through the camera thinking, oh my God, I'm still waiting for this light. Well, that's not the feeling that the audience is going to see. And that's always the thing to look out for. We're always looking for the audience. You're the first audience. You want to look at the audience and give them the feeling, yeah, that's exactly where we need to go. And that's, everybody's going to book you again. That's the reason everybody loves you, because your images are always for the end product. And that's the thing always to keep in mind. So there we go. That's really important. Create a safe work environment. The second thing that is really important about the inner feedback loop is, us humans, we're totally set up for adaptation. Meaning, we get used to stuff really fast, no matter what in life, right? We have some horrible food, we eat it 20 times, we start to like it. It's crazy, it's stupid, but that's basically just the way we are. And we know it from lighting, right? We set everything at daylight, 5, 6, sun becomes white. We turn on something warm, it stays warm. If we turn everything to tungsten, our lights change, and then suddenly tungsten feels white, right? So that's basically what happens there. So we're always adapting. We're always in a sense where we're getting used to stuff. I mean, the craziest stuff that happens, you're shooting in disco something and then totally green light, you go outside, oh my God, it's like on a trip, right? So our eyes really try to adapt all the time, and our emotions as well. We get used to stuff, right? So what we got to do is we got to step out. So best DPs I've worked with, they light something, they go outside. They go outside for 5 minutes, chat a little bit, then they come back in, fresh eyes. Do I still like this? Does my inner feedback loop still work? Is that still looking the way it should? So that really helps. Another thing that really helps is to pan lights. Not just turn it on, have it in your face, this is what it is. If you pan around, if you can create differences, your eyes are always going to react again. They're like this, they're like this. So there's this standard joke within electricians, right? It's like, pan the light to the left, a little bit more, a little bit more. Pan it to the left, you pan it left, pan it back, pan it back, pan it back. And then it's like, oh, now it's perfect. And you're thinking, man, it's the exact same position it was before. And a long time, I didn't understand that. By the time that I got more into understanding how human behavior works and how our eyes work and how our brains work, I started to understand, man, that's not what it's about. It's about finding the right part that feels right. So you got to pan that light away to pan it back. And if you end it at the same point, you just know that you really lit it correctly. If you're off a little bit, one or to the left, That's actually the time you know it wasn't right. I got used to it. And when it came back, I did it better. I had this huge experience a long time ago working on a big commercial, 360-degree motion control stuff, 18Ks on the cherry pickers, shooting for 2 days the scene, massive amount of lights, right? And then the production asked me if I could stay a day longer because the photography people were coming in. They kind of liked the light and they wanted to use it to do their scene. And I thought, well, I don't know a lot about photography. That's a cool thing. I'll stay on. So I came back next morning with the whole crew. We sparked everything, went up with a coffee. Photographers came in and said, yeah, it looks nice. Let's turn off everything. I was standing saying, wait a minute, you want us to turn up like 200-300K? That, yeah, we need to see it without the light first. Like, it's going to take about 15 minutes to restrike all these lamps outside. Yeah, I don't care. Okay, we turned off every light. And they said, okay, lights off, what do you want to do? Let's start striking this one. Okay, we waited 10 minutes till it struck, light came up, that's good, let's try this one. You know what turned out after we really went through the process of relighting? We had about 20 lights, 5 lights less, looked better. Because you're getting so used to your light and you're not liking something. Let's do another thing here. Then you turn on another light. Oh, it looks better. Thing is, it's not looking better, it's looking different because we got bored with the thing before and we started to add lights. So that's a tricky thing you don't want to go into. So that's the reason turning off lights. I mean, nowadays with the LEDs, you can have everything on your gaffer's control. You turn it on, you turn it off, or on the iPad, whatever. You've got such fast, intuitive control. So it's the best thing. It's not about, being proud of a gaffer. I'm in control of the lights. No way. Give the board to the DP. Here are the most 5 important lights. Go work out what you need to work out. Then you can turn it on, turn it off. You can start working with this stuff. So this is the really important things to get into. And I think it's the most important thing to stay versatile in that way. So I always can mention again for all the colleagues out there, sandbags are really great, ropes are really great, but always have in mind you need to be able to move the light. You gotta be there to be able to say, I want it 5 meters left, I want 5 meters right, let's just move it around. And if it's not on rolls, if you're not thinking about this ahead of time, I need to be able to take care of the adaptation of the DP. Does everybody like it on set? If not, I gotta be able to move this thing. And even if I'm just coming back again to the same part, it doesn't matter. What you wanna do is you wanna stay flexible, you wanna change stuff. And by doing this, like, I know, I started a few years ago. I strike a light into the room. I look at it, say, okay, let's start panning it around. And I pan the lamp around, up, down, left, right. Look what happens if it hits the windowsill, if it hits the ceiling, if it hits the floor. I was getting established enough with the gaffer that I wasn't thrown off set for feeling like I'm not knowing what I'm doing. But if you're able to convey this to people, saying, look, this is a creative process, let's figure out the room, because that's what I always say. We're figuring out the room because light is all about the bounce and the reflections, right? So by panning around the light, I'm seeing what's happening with the ceilings, when am I getting limitations from the windowsill, what's happening if I'm bouncing into the green wall. So later on in the process of saying, let's creatively pan around the lights, I'm actually knowing what's going to happen if I pan it there. So maybe I'll say pan left or pan it only right, because I know that's not going to look good at all. So by starting out with this one light source, not adding a light if you don't like it, just start panning it around, see if something better happens. I mean, that's the stuff what happens. I was shooting, I'm going into anecdotes, I was shooting with Chris Doyle, a short film, and it was the first time for me to work, just a god out there in images. And we were like relighting from complete overcast day to sunny day. And it was like a big setup. And I was like, when we finished the first setup, and then Chris said, okay, we're gonna go to daylight. Let's get the stuff, let's light for day. And I was like, okay, we get away all the butterflies, let's light in the light direct, have a look at it. I said, why? I said, well, Chris, we got to relight, right? He said, no, there's no relighting. Relighting is a creative process. You got to think about that ahead of time. When you're going from one setup to the next, make it as a flow. I'm standing here, I'm looking at the set. I'm looking at every change that happens because it might be that during that change, something's better going to happen. So there again, we go back to the inner feedback loop. Chris was all the time checking, is something better happening than we experienced? You know what, in my experience, mostly the best stuff happens by accident. But it's not any accident, it's your accident, because you were standing there looking at it, seeing the difference and saying, stop, this is a new direction, we're going like this, and let's build from there. And all of a sudden, the creativity with the room and everything takes on a completely different level, which is so much better than anything else. So that's basically the thing. Create a great work environment where that's possible. Make sure that you're able to move the lights, so you can turn off lights, turn them on, check different stuff out to be able to keep this inner feedback loop going. At the same time, we're starting out with the basic paint of the picture. We're starting out with emotional memories. We're starting out with what we think might be a great direction. We have an idea, the way we remembered it. Let's see if we can recreate this feeling and start to build from there. And that all of a sudden, when you set your basic exposure, your f-stop, and where you want to rate your lights at with color temperature, no more meter necessary. Because from then on, it's about your feeling. And you've got a DAT in the back. You can always, and if you don't, you have your small measurements with you in the camera. You can quickly check if you get nervous about something. But basically, the exposure and all the measurement tools we have will never give you good lighting. It's only going to give you standards. It's only going to give you basics, technical, great stuff. What's important because we need it then broadcasted later on, but it's only the starting part. From there on, there where the bucks are. That's the point where exactly you want to go, because that's when you're going to create something with value, something with greatness, something where people can later relate to it. And obviously, if you're talking about it as a job, get back to bookie again. So that's the important thing out there. So I hope these two tools help you a little bit along the way, give you a point you maybe into a different direction, give you some inspiration to try something different on your next step. Now it's exactly half an hour and I finished the first part just in time. Any questions coming up along that? It's a process I'm working on, so I will be glad to answer any questions coming along. And obviously our research and how way light and emotion works is going to be an ongoing thing for a long time. And I'd just be happy to share it with you along the way. There we go. Part number 2. Let's go back to some tools out there. When do we not use the CRLS? When is the part where the manufacturer of the lighting system, a gaffer, goes ahead and says, guys, don't use it? It's real simple. All we want to do is we want to create great lighting. And we're trying to create really great tools to do this. But there's some things out there where I would not recommend to use it. Now, the thing is, going back to the anecdotes, when Christian Berger and I started working together, we had this feeling of, the reflected light is really great. Let's try to work with this. We already were working on bigger projects, so it wasn't really always a money issue. But the thing was, Christian said we will only use the system. And what was so great about this process, and it was horrible at some times, because we were trying to recreate stuff I could have done different, could have done easier in completely different ways. But we had to go through this process to see where are the limitations, where don't we want to go with the system, where is traditional ways of using butterflies, bounce boards, all this stuff out there, great tools, are still better to use. So going through this process, we discovered great stuff, how to use it, but also what not to use. So the first thing I want to touch on here is size. This cinematic lighting system starts at really small, at 7-centimeter reflectors, doing something for eye light. Then you can scale it up for, background stuff, for effects, whatever. Then you go to the 1x1 boards, the C100s, already giving you a great volume of light going down. But that's about it, right? And if you take that C100 and you go too far away, for the eye, it's going to feel like a small 7x7. Hard shadows, you're not going to really fill the room anymore. So at that point, and I always pointed this out along the way too, butterflies are great, because there you can get 20x20s, 40x40s, or 6x6s, whatever, right? No matter what distance you bring. So if you want to have a really diffused, soft, big source of light going into some space, it's always better to go to butterfly than try to recreate this with one cine reflector. If you can do a bigger size with it, like stack 50s up next to each other, you're going to get to a similar size, obviously more output and more control. But then again, I always think that simplicity is key. So if I can take a rag, put it on a butterfly, put it onto a stand out there, it's great to do that. And then you can always add a cine reflector into it, because then you want the punch, then you want something special in there. And that's exactly the point, again, about the cine reflectors, diffused light with a punch. And this punch, as great and as beautiful stuff it can do for a lot of shoots, there's some instances where first you want to say, I need some fill light. I'm just going to need a lot. I just need to flood the space. Use a butterfly, use a big source. What's a butterfly? I hope my German is not influencing to the English. It's a rag. It's like 4x4, 6x6, 12x12, 20x20. Comes in a frame. Matthews does beautiful frames. They'll can be screwed together, taken apart. Put the rag inside. It's like cloth. It's like plastics to light through, some reflective material, and you can really just make it really straight and overhaul the textile. Okay. Oh, Matthews is here. man himself. Hi, Martin. So that's just a great thing to do from there. If you need a bigger surface, because obviously it's about packing size too, right? The reflectors are of a standard size, which is great, and they're slick and really slim. But at the same time, the rags you just can put together, and then you just can wrap them out. So combination of these two is really great. And if you're doing commercials, you just want to do an overhead, like Martin is now saying right now, with a rag. It's fantastic. And then you're going to add the reflectors in, and that's where you're going to get the complexity, because what's happening with the big rags is you don't get any control of your light. So that's all of a sudden where you're going to need all this gear and this amount of stuff to go on. So that's the combination between the two is something that is really important. Christian's movies, what we ended up doing a lot is, especially because we're able to choose locations as well, is we a lot of times did not use rags because Christian didn't want any standard gear on the set, so we used the skylight, which is a fantastic combination. But once again, if you got clouds, if the sun's going to come around on you, if you don't have a choice to choose the location or time of day, it's something you need to take care of, and it's better just to use big rags to do this. Otherwise, the combination of skylight and reflectors can be fantastic too. If you've got you're just doing a short scene, or you're going to be safe for some time. There's places in this world where actually weather is more stable than in others. Yeah, so that's basically something where I would not use the cine reflectors to try to do something like a big rag. It doesn't make any sense, right? So there's another thing. Part number 2 about this story is, a lot of times in the lighting system, I talk about recreating natural light and the amazingness of what happens if you get the feeling that the light source is further away. It's just going to feel so much more natural, better. Well, there are instances where you don't want that. For example, think of a night scene. Think about a lampshade standing here. You want to have this feeling of a light being really close. Why? Because you get a feeling of the room. When you then, for example, not doing first a master of the room, then going in, and you're trying just to, for example, the scene is being shot in a way that you don't see the whole room all the time, but you still have a feeling, where's the window, where are the lampshades, how is the room kind of working. The sense of visual orientation of a three-dimensional space that we're seeing on a screen, it really helps if you're not trying to make a light look closer than it is or further away than it is, but actually really kind of create these dimensions. That's the reason if you're recreating a window in a studio and you're having the lights really close, it's never going to feel like outside, because that light's going to feel as close as your practical right here, like your lampshade. So here, all of a sudden, the space and the dimensions don't work. So that's the reason the reflectors are great, for example, if you want to recreate this from outside. But if in here and you want to have this feeling of a light being really close, well, then you just got to do that, right? And if I, for example, I think I showed it on one of the last Insta Lives from the last shoot, was that we had a lampshade, right? I need to extend that lampshade. Well, if I put a reflector there, sometimes it's really great just to put a reflector really close to the lampshade to get the light bulb. Well, then again, this lamp is so close to the light source, it's not going to feel that far away. So that's cool. But if you have a lamp source here and you can't place the reflector because it's in frame, you got to do it outside of frame. Well, I want to keep the lamp as close as possible. That's the reason I used an Astera with a snap grid on it, because it's just out of frame. It's easy. It's on a battery, nice, easy to put there. But the main reason is I could have done that with a reflector too, is if it put in the light source, like a Joe Lico far away and punched into it, it's going to feel like, oh my God, this light source is really far away that's coming from another space. And we were trying to recreate really small rooms here. We got a fly visiting us today. So basically, that's the thing what it's about. Dimensions of rooms in relationship to lamps and to lights. So if you have a lampshade here, and I want to recreate it outside of frame, I just take a direct light source, whatever it is, a Fresnel or a Titan Astera tube, or whatever it is. So to keep that light really close, because you want to keep this relationship of, again, we're going back again to emotions. How big should the room feel? How does this person feel in a room? And if the person in the room has the feeling, I'm tied in, I feel like I'm locked in. You want to create a feeling of the feeling, oh my God, the room is spacious, the lights can be so far away, you don't. And the other way around too, if you want to have the feeling it's a huge room and you don't, well, take a reflector, then light into it from far away. It's going to feel further away for you. That's the really important thing about distance right there. Plus, we can use practicals a lot these days too. So a lot with that works. But if you need to extend it, that's, for example, something I do right there. Same with street lights outside too. It's just about space, because it's great to re-enhance space. It has to be far away. And if it needs to be close, just use a direct light source. and you want the fall off, right? Sometimes the source image is really great if a light source being really close, like a chimera up there, and the person gets up, ooh, it's going to get really hot. Fantastic. That's what you want to do. Okay, there's one other thing to point out there, and especially as a gaffer, that's for me one of our main concerns: how fast can I get something done, right? And if you, for example, shooting in a room, everybody's smoking, that's a lot of haze, and you have the feeling you need a backlight on a person. It's about, okay, I can put a reflector there real easy. Can I put a Leco further away, bounce into it? I can if the beam's outside of frame, because I got to remember, right? The beam of the Jolico to the reflector is going to be visible because of the smoke in the room. So there you have to go really up high, keep it outside of frame, punch it over, it's going to be fine. But if everything of this stuff's in frame, not so good. So that's also a reason why I always say don't get too, I personally, everybody can do whatever they need to do, and I'm learning a lot from everybody out there too. Basically, the whole thing is all about easiness. So you can take a reflector, bounce into another one, bounce into another one. It's going to get very complex. And if you want to keep it fast and simple, which I personally prefer, why? If you keep it fast and simple, it gives you the chance to say, Jacob, move this over to the left, move it to the right, show me something different. If you've got too much complexity going on, I can't offer this anymore. So that's really the only reason I'm keeping it as simple as possible, because I know it's going to help your vision. So from there, going on, keep it as simple as possible, keep a reflector up there. If you need to take the Jolico further away outside the shot, it's going to work. Otherwise, I'd go direct. Now, here's the thing. If it's backlit, here's the big secret. The quality of the light doesn't matter that much because it's backlit. It's a rim over here. And if it's not a big source really far back where my bald head here gets a straight line over here and on the shoulders, it's one thing. But basically, if it's backlit, the light doesn't matter anymore. It's really going to get tricky when the light comes to the front. You're going to see shadows. You're going to see skin tones. That's when the stuff really starts to matter. So for me, in terms of simplest solution, if it's backlit, if it's for a background, for example, as well, sometimes using a reflector is more complicated than going direct, and you don't care about the quality of the light. It's a splash in the background. It's out of focus. It's just out there. I just need something back there. Don't make it too complicated. Keep the good stuff for close-ups. Keep the good stuff for really lighting the scenes where emotions are happening, where you need to have eye light, where you need to have skin tones, where all this stuff where the reflectors really shine come out. But for background, I mean, sometimes it's great, like, oh, I just need a splash back there. I can't run a power cord back there. Use a reflector, catch something, put it back there. Fine, and it's simpler. But sometimes that's not enough. Then setting up a light source on a battery pack or whatever, putting it out there into the background, splashing it, no matter the quality, is going to be fine. So that's just something I think that's always really important to keep in mind. We got to focus on the intensity of the emotion, about the feeling we can create. And the closer it gets to skin, to eyes, to people that are conveying this emotion, the more important it is to really take care of the emotions and the quality of the light. The further back it is, the more out of focus it is, the more backlit it is, the more you can get away with not so quality light. It's going to create a great mood, but it's really only a shine over here, something out of focus in the background is going to be fine. So there you have it. CRLS is wonderful. Everything you want to shoot, except if you need a huge rag size, it will not replace a butterfly. If you want to keep a light source real close, well, then keep a light source real close. And if you want to re-enhance that, use a direct light because you're trying to recreate a direct light. And if it's about simplicity and fast and out of focus in the background, it's not about the quality. There's no reason actually to use the reflectors. Keep them on set for all the stuff that matters. There it is. All my knowledge of when I'm not using the CRLS on set long time. But I do have to point out there was one comment saying when it's not best to use CRLS when you're not shooting. I love that. So thanks for that. Okay, here we go. 15 minutes left. Any questions to go? I'm ready and open for anything that hits my way. And if there's no questions, that's fine too. We're going to be here in 2 weeks. If you've got any ideas what we should talk about, send us a note. We'd be happy to think about it if we can work this into something worth talking about. Yeah, and I hope talking about the feelings and about the emotions is not too far out there. It's something you can relate to, because I think it's the most important thing that we need to work about. Thanks so much about this. Yeah, that's that. Jacob Ballinger is the personal IG. I must honestly say I'm not checking it that much. All our energy is on the Lightbridge Instagram account, which LED fixtures can be realistically used to recreate daylight from outside a window. I can definitely talk more about emotion. Thanks so much for getting back to that on a different session. Um, but if you have something specific about emotions you want me to talk about or research or test, send us a note. That's what we're here for. Look, so with the LED fixtures from outside, there's two parts, right? The one part is the wavelength of the light. So if you want to have a full spectrum of the wavelength, you got to go to the really new LEDs that can really mix colors better or use an HMI. So that's about the quality of the color, right? But when you're talking about the feeling of daylight, it has everything to do with distance. The sky is so far away, the sun is so far away. So it's all about having the biggest, strongest light source you can for daylight, obviously, and put it as far away as you can. And then use the reflectors, because if you don't have the space, if you're in a studio, for example, or you can't put up a cherry picker, you can rig the reflector, it's great. Put the light source as far away as from the reflector, punch into it, come onto the set. It's going to give you the best daylight simulation out there. And Cream Source doing a great job bringing out high powerful LEDs. So there's more and more LEDs coming to do this. And I haven't seen the new aperture, 600, whatever it's called yet. So that seems to be more powerful too. So it's fantastic, right? All these days, yeah, it's just, so much more powerful LEDs are coming out of the market, which is helping because we are competing with daylight outside as well too. That's something to look out for as well. Yeah, thanks. We'll see how we can maybe we can try in a few instas out to talk about really set up some lights and check different kinds of emotions with that and what that does and why. That's maybe a nice idea to do that. Yeah, I hope that helps about the LEDs to recreate daylight. One thing is just the quality of it, and the other thing is just putting as far away as possible, and that always means the stronger the better to do that. Yeah, there we go. And look at paintings, man. For quality of lighting and creating emotions, the painters up there, a lot of them have done a really fantastic job of doing that. And if you're trying to figure out how they did it, a really great way to do this is to try to recreate it. They not necessarily have to do, all the backgrounds and the clothes and stuff, but just to see what Rembrandt did, just to see what old Vermeer masters did is fantastic. And something furthermore out there, guys who are interested in that, like Mark Rothko, American Abstract Expressionism. He was really just looking at colors, and he was just trying to create a really the brightest, best red in a square. And you look at it and say, okay, it's a red square, it's black background, okay, fine. But if you go closer, you're gonna see there's greens, there's blues, there's a lot of colors in there, and he used all these steps of colors so the red would come out more. So these days, I've been more and more implementing putting in different colors to make one color look better and stronger in the emotion. Because again, it's about contrast and about adding value to it. Cool. I'll tell you something. I'm gonna go have a beer and be back in 2 weeks. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Yes, Judith, you're absolutely right. There are so many fantastic women painters out there. We definitely have to do a show on female cinematographers and painters. That's going to be something really interesting to look into. We'll do this. Cool. Well, thanks, Judith. Thanks, everybody, so much for joining and helping and being here. I hope all of you at home are safe and working and everything's going okay. Thanks so much. Any questions, hit them our way. We're here for you. Have a great evening, and I hope you're going to have a next great shooting day. Everything's saved to YouTube, to Instagram. Thank you so much. Have a great one. See you soon out there in the world. Bye. Share to IGTV. Oh, das war natürlich nicht gemacht. Ach, dann machen wir es so. experience.